morning. Apologize for some difficulty getting the stream set up. Good morning. Sorry, I was having some difficulty setting the stream up, but thank you for joining us, whether you're listening from the office, listening from your commute to work, or listening from home. My name is Paul, and I'm welcome back to Seated in Rain, a series where we attempt to recapture the vision of the Messiah as our King, so we can look forward to the day where he will return again. A time for us to reflect and think on the goodness of God and his plan in sending his son Jesus Christ, especially during times like these where our plans are always interrupted, where the future seems uncertain. It is through this series that I hope that we will reorient our hearts towards Christ. So this morning we're looking at Psalm 16, and technically speaking, maybe this is not what some people would say a messianic psalm. Now, what do I mean by that? For some people, when we think of a messianic psalm, we think of prophecy, we think of prediction. It has to be like maybe Psalm 2, where it clearly talks about the Son of God is coming to establish his rule and his kingdom on earth. Now, while there are psalms like that, which contain prophecy, like Psalm 2 and Psalm 110, the majority of the messianic psalms that we will be looking at, and what has been categorized as messianic, don't actually contain direct prophecy or prediction on the coming of Jesus. In fact, they gained their messianic status because they were quoted by Jesus himself in reference to himself. Or they were quoted by the apostles, saying that these psalms actually refer to Jesus. So, especially, you'll see that many of them are Davidic psalms, so psalms written by David. And the fact of the matter is, in the New Testament, there's no debate. There's no debate when these psalms are quoted. Oh, does that actually mean Jesus though? Or does that mean like some random king in the past? So in the New Testament, the first Christians, the second century Christians, it is widely accepted, no debate, that these psalms, when quoted, refer to Jesus himself. So we're looking at one today, Psalm 16. And as the pattern is with these psalms, it'll start off with David talking about himself, and then soon we'll realize, wait a minute, what David is describing here seems to be way more than what could be applied to his own life. What David is writing here seems to be because of a prophecy, because of the inspiration that he's speaking ahead, predicting about the Messiah. So today we're looking at Psalm 16, and we're going to look at two parts. The first part is about a faithful servant, and the second part is about a faithful Lord. So verses 1 to 6 is about a faithful servant, and verses 7 to 11 is about a faithful Lord. 1 to 6, a faithful servant, and 7 to 11, a faithful Lord. So let's look at Psalm 16. Preserve me, O God, for in you I take refuge. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good apart from you. As for the saints in the land, they are the excellent ones, in whom is all my delight. The sorrows of those who run after another god shall multiply. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out, or take their names on my lips. The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. So this first part, we see that David is talking about his loyalty to the Lord in 5 areas. The first area is security, as we see in verse 1. In you I take refuge. So we know that for most of David's life, he lived a troubled life. He was chased around by Saul and his people. And it was during these situations that David wrote a lot of the Psalms about taking refuge in the Lord. And so we see here that the first thing that David trusts is security, taking refuge in the Lord. Now the second thing in verse 2 is his welfare. He says here, I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good apart from you. So his welfare, not only does David trust in Yahweh for his security, beyond his security, every good that he has comes from the Lord. I have no good apart from you. So security, welfare. And then the third one is his associates. So people he associates with. And we see in verse 3. As for the saints in the land, they are the excellent ones, in whom is all my delight. Now the term saints, if we think of it in a New Testament context, we think of Christians. We think of the devout, the holy, the pious. But in the Old Testament, saints actually is often used to refer about heavenly ones rather than the earthly ones. So we see here, David is drawn towards holiness. Not only verse 1 does he take security in God, but verse 2, he declares that there is no good apart from God. And verse 3, in that context, he longs and he's drawn towards holiness. He's drawn towards people, the saints, who are excellent, and he delights to be like them, delights to associate with them. And then the fourth, we see worship. Security, welfare, associates, and then worship. Verse 4. The sorrows of those who run after another god shall multiply. Now this is very iconic, because if you remember, what God said to Eve in Genesis 3 is, I will multiply the pain of your childbearing. I will multiply the pain of your childbearing. Now the same language is here in verse 4, that those who run after literally hasten, literally pick up their pace just to chase after another god, shall multiply. Their sorrows, much like Eve's pain in childbearing, their sorrows shall multiply. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out, or take their names on my lips. So here we see David's posture of worship is of loyalty, of faithfulness towards Yahweh alone. And then we come to verse 5 and 6, which talks about his inheritance. The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The lions have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. Now this is strange because if you remember in 1 Samuel 26, when David talks to Saul, he declares there, because of his enemies, David actually has no inheritance. So in other words, David is in a place where he has nothing. And to not have inheritance is a big deal in the past. But guess what? Guess who also does not have inheritance? Out of the 12 tribes, the priests, the tribe of the Levites, those who work in the temple in the sanctuary, they also don't have inheritance. So here we see that David is in a place where he has nothing, but he declares that his most beautiful inheritance is in the Lord himself. He declares that actually to be devoid of inheritance, to have nothing, could even be a good thing, because it focuses his attention and his joy in the Lord alone. So as we come now to this first part, we see a picture of a very faithful servant, one who takes his security, his welfare, his associates, his worship, and his inheritance in Yahweh alone. Now the second part of the psalm is when things get interesting, because it is starting here that we see that, okay, what David is describing in the next few verses seem to be more than just about himself. Let's read on. I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad, and my whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure. For you will not abandon my soul to Sheol, or let your Holy One see corruption. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Now, verse 7 still sounds good, right? I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. But we come to verse 8. I have set the Lord always before me. And then, because he is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. Now at Pentecost, at the birth of the church, the Apostle Peter quotes this verse 8, to refer to Messiah himself. And I think this is especially obvious when we look at the word always. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. So here David is projecting forward a picture of the Messiah, of the Son of David. The Son of David who will reign, who will always be with the Lord and reign along with Yahweh. And this right-hand relationship between the Lord and the King is specially reserved to the Messiah and Yahweh. So verse 8, we start to see that things go beyond David himself, but onto Jesus, onto the Messiah. And so verse 9, therefore my heart is glad and my whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure. And then verse 10, you will not abandon my soul to Sheol. So Sheol is a place where in the Old Testament it's called the pit. Literally probably what we would call hell, or just the abyss of destruction. So without concept of, even back then, without the concept of hell, the Old Testament, the Jews were familiar with Sheol as a place of destruction, as a place where the unrighteous go to get and be punished and judged. So here, David declares, "You will not abandon my soul to Sheol, or let your Holy One see corruption." And this is very clear language of the resurrection. Again, this verse 10 is quoted by the Apostle Peter and the Apostle Paul throughout the New Testament. So here we see that verse 7 to 11 is almost talking about the Messiah. The Messiah is next to the Lord, reigning with him. The Messiah and his flesh, his body, dwells secure because it will not go to the pit to rot. It will not see any corruption. And then the takeaway is verse 11. The Messiah